All right, we're going to go ahead and get started then. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kim Maybon, and I am the board chair of Corona Chamber of Commerce and owner of Creative by Design. We've got some great updates ahead for you today, so we thank you for joining us. I will also be reading a few announcements. Today's event is sponsored by UFC Gym with over 150 locations. UFC Gym is the world leader of MMA-inspired fitness. Rooted in authenticity, they are an extension of UFC and are proud to make the training programs of MMA athletes available to all. Join their inclusive community of like-minded fitness enthusiasts and train different. Thank you, UFC Gym, for sponsoring this meeting. A reminder to please use the chat button to ask any questions. Send your questions to the chamber host and we will verbally ask them at the appropriate time. Right now, I'd like to introduce our County Supervisor, Karen Spiegel. Karen's unique passion for service and leadership in regional transportation issues, as well as regional partnerships and collaborations, make her a wonderful and energetic member of the community. She sets an example for us all with her roll-up-your-sleeves servant heart, which has led her to immerse herself in many civic, business, and community activities. Please welcome Karen Spiegel.
Well, good morning, and
Supervisor Spiegel.
Good morning. That's okay. Thank you for having me again. I'll always be carrying the Corona Chamber. Too many years being involved. Well, I'm going to start off on some good news. Everybody knows that we, in Riverside County, we're at the red tier. We entered the red tier March 17th, which was the first phase of starting to open businesses up. Well, we are on target for next week to move to the orange tier, which just means more expansion. It is actually a good thing, very positive. Our numbers have kept down. In fact, they've been decreasing slowly over the last couple of weeks, or actually 5 weeks. And it is so gratifying to know that we are kind of rounding that corner. And I know that many of you have talked about what we're seeing in other countries and other states, and there's a surge. We are keeping our eye on that. We just have to continue to do due diligence. And I know we talk about this every time, and some people don't want to have masks, but do it for keeping those businesses open, do it for your family. The vaccines, that's another thing. We'll get to more of a conversation. But I always say, if you don't like it and you really want your businesses open, that's going to help. Whether we want to face that or not, we found that with every other major illness and disease, when the vaccines came, that was the only way that we were able to, even back with the Spanish flu and polio and everything else. Do I like vaccines? Not my first choice. And I do believe everybody should have a choice. I don't believe we should mandate it. But with that being said, if that's the only way to get through this, I'll have a shot in my arm. Now, the advantage with the red tier was we were able to open all the schools, or I should say they opened their schools. Prior to the red tier, they had to get clearance with the county as well as the state. Now they go straight following the guidelines for the schools, and they could open up without even having to go through the county, which is a good thing. One less, governmental agency involved is better, as we all know. There's also new guidance for graduation ceremonies and live entertainment. Obviously, it's not going to be the way graduation ceremonies have been in the past, where you can have your entire family and aunts and uncles and everything. It will be smaller, but at least those kids will have the opportunity to go through a graduation. In the next slide. You may have heard, positive and negative, we do have a new public health officer. This is Dr. Leon, and Dr. Jeffrey Leon has been the face of public health for the last couple of months. Dr. Kaiser was out of the country, and Dr. Leon had taken over. He rolled out the vaccines, and he's been an integral part of all of our COVID-19 responses since, just for more than a year. And he's led the incident management team, as I said, with the vaccine rollout. He's just an incredible man. I think you'll all really enjoy him. He is very frank and gets the job done, but in such a way that he does it in such an admirable way. And so I really admire Dr. Leon. And just to make it clear, we hired him, and our job is to hire a public health officer. we were not the ones that he reported to, and so we weren't the ones that had the conversation with Dr. Kaiser. So we just hired Dr. Leon on those bases. Next. We get asked all the time about vaccinations, and even Corona has asked about more vaccination sites. We have 12 vaccination pods. 4 are county run. We only have 4. 4 are state sites and 4 are curative. We also have 230 providers. That is, whether it's the stores, whether it's some Walmarts have it, some of your doctor's offices are providers. And that means that you have been authorized through the state, not the county, to administer vaccines, because there's different qualifications and criteria that they need to have. So those are done through the state, but we have 230 in Riverside County. So there is ample opportunity to receive vaccines. We did have a challenge for a while of our vaccines being more of a demand than we had for the people that wanted it. And so we were very challenged with some of the vaccines. Go to the next slide, please. They're also in the community health centers, and RUHS now is offering appointments for both first and second. So there's many. We also have 6 mobile teams. And with that being said, we now are at a point to where we're going to have an awful lot of vaccines, so we need more people to step up and take them. We have given out here in Riverside County 880,000, yet we have had 991,000 Riverside County residents, because you can get a vaccine either in the county you work or the county you live. So if somebody is working in LA County or Orange County, they can get their vaccine over there. So that's why we have a high number of vaccines administered that weren't done in our county. So the good news is we have 42.3% of our 65 plus fully vaccinated, just under half. 63 of those percent of our 65 plus are partially vaccinated. It's only the first dose. And then 16.3% of our residents 16 and above, and 27.3% partially. And those numbers may seem low, but they will be increasing. Next slide, please. Because April 1st, that's tomorrow, anybody 50 and older can get a vaccination. And then on April 15th, anybody 16 and plus. And 16 is only with Pfizer because they allow 16, but everybody else is 18 and above. So basically 18 and above will be able to get a vaccine throughout Riverside County on April 15th. So we're telling you, if anybody hasn't got it and you're in the 50 plus, you better get it in the next couple of weeks, because you're going to be inundated with folks below 50 that are going to be trying to take the appointment. So the vaccines are now becoming more readily available. And that's what I was saying, as far as the availability is much greater right now. So we're kind of excited about that. If you want it, please get it. Now, there's other things that are happening within COVID. And that is, we still have the small business grants. This is, I think we're in the 4th round, or our 5th round starts and ends actually today, but there will be another round. So the CARE relief grants, the California relief grants, and those are really eligible for $5,000 to $25,000. Riverside County does not currently have the grants available. That is because we are waiting for our next round of monies from the federal government. With that being said, we are focusing very much on our businesses, our small businesses, and getting everybody back up and standing people back up. So we would help stabilize and get things going so that we can really look forward for our economy. There also are other grants going to be coming available. So the Paycheck Protection Program has been extended, and that was President Biden just signed that into law on March 29th, and is extending it 2 additional months to May 31st, 2021. And it's another 30-day period for the SBA process application. So that's coming on the last slide, but I jumped because we're in the same conversation. So those are available. So I know that many of you, I can see who's on there, has already gotten the paycheck, so you know that you can get that extended. I wish that you give that opportunity. This is one, someone's going to get it, even if you're opposed to getting this money, someone's going to get it, so why give it back? It's this conversation of, do we take the money? Do we take all this money from these trillions that the federal government is going to be dispersing out? And the problem is someone's going to take it. We may as well have it for the people in our community. So I'm not one that thinks we should be doling it out, but it's there. We also have rental assistance programs still going on, and that's for from the U.S. Department of Treasury. That's going to go through December 31st. And that's through an organization, and you can go on unitedlift.org as it shows. Those are really good because we really worked with the landlords. And so landlords can apply as long as the tenant signs off on it. Because quite often people just don't want to fill out the paperwork, don't want to do all the processing. So the landlord could do it as well as the tenant. And so the money goes to the landlord, because I know I was having a challenge that tenants would give it and not necessarily give it to landlords. And if you own a apartment complex, you know, fourplex or a quad or even bigger, sometimes people do that for their income. And the mentality has always been, oh, they have all this money, they have all these apartments, and you know what, mom and pop has saved, that's their income for their retirement. And we need to be very cognizant that just because someone owns an apartment building doesn't mean they're wealthy. That could be their income. So that's available. One thing else that I wanted to share about is, that's not going on the slide, is AB 868, and that's Assembly Member Eduardo Garcia. And what this one is working for the California Emergency Services Act. It's helping to offset some funeral costs. So if you or a family member or somebody you know who has had a loss, there is monies available from this. It's not quite gone through and voted, but in the meantime, so keep your eye on this one because it will go back to January 1st of 2020. But it also has FEMA, which is in place for funeral costs for COVID-19. It has to be COVID-19 related deaths. You have to show things like a birth certificate or whatever, but you know, it's anywhere from $9,000 to $3,500 that could help offset some of those expenses. And many of us may not be prepared for having a death such as this with somebody who was surprised that they would pass away at this time. So there's a 800 number and information that we could get to you for the assistance. And hopefully you can pass this information on to anybody else that needs it. Now, we also have a program going on. April is National Volunteer Appreciation Month. And so the county, which we had in the city of Corona, we had recognition for Good Neighbor Awards when Eugene and I were in council. I don't know if they're still going on. And recognizing those who are just doing great things for our community as a thank you. And so we are doing the Volunteer of the Year here in Riverside County. So we have one going, our district. They'll all be given out, all 5 districts, on April 20th at the board meeting. And if you know of somebody, you can go on our website. And I think the cutoff is April 6th. So if you're interested, please get the more information and submit somebody who you feel is deserving. It's a very simple process. With all that's going on in the pandemic, I think it's really important for us to acknowledge those of you that stood up and continued, even though you were called essential, but you still continued functioning and meeting the needs of all of us in the community. Sometimes it wasn't easy. And I know some of you are having a problem. I know it's been a common complaint that getting employees to come back has been a challenge because of the fact of some of them are making more on unemployment with the extra amount that's given. And so it's very hard to get employees to come back, but there will. It's just a matter of time. And I thank you for all your efforts. And one more thing, I hate to end on a downer. those of you know, and I'm going to be transparent. We have one negative, challenging situation going on. And I say negative because we are getting a situation in Blythe and in the South County area of some of the immigrants, the illegal immigrants that are being let through on the border, and they are being driven to Blythe and driven to South County, and they are dropped off. We are having to be humane, wanting to be humane, offering them at least an opportunity. The problem is they are not tested for COVID, so we are getting some COVID positive. Then we have to have them separated. We have to quarantine them because we were told they'll only be with us for 3 days. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I need help in that we are not being funded. This is a federal issue, and yet we are not getting federal or state dollars. I have already gone through our legislative folks. We've had discussions. I've had a legislative briefing about this last week and shared our concerns that it's going to overwhelm our resources. And then you say, okay, we'll let them go. If we did not at least bring them in and test them to see if they're COVID positive, if they are, quarantine them, they would be dumped off in our county and then just dispersed. And that's not what we want to do. We want to have a little opportunity to be humane, but at the same time, we want to protect our residents. And I know some of the residents are upset about this, and I am too, for the fact that we're not getting support. But with that being said, I just needed to let you know we are working on this, and hopefully we can get through this and they'll fix what's going on at the border so we won't have as many of these challenges going on in our county. With that, if there's any questions?
Thank you so much, Supervisor Spiegel. Anthony, do we have any questions for her?
Yes, we have one question at the moment for the supervisor. And the question is, are the funeral expenses assistance program just for COVID-19 deaths?
Yes, it is. They have to be proven that they're COVID related.
Thank you, Supervisor. Let's see here. There are no further questions.
Okay, thank you, Anthony, and thank you again, Supervisor Spiegel, for sharing all that information today.
Thank you.
Bobby, take it away.
Thank you so much. We are very excited about our Coffee with the Entrepreneur coming up on April 12th. You can see the bit.ly down below. Please go ahead onto the bit.ly/coffee April 12th, but it's APR, and it is case sensitive. We have Neha Area, who is the founder of FutureLink Inc. Services. This is a lady that came over to the United States, immigrated legally to our states to go ahead and create a business, and has a great opportunity to share all the trials and tribulations. Through COVID, she had to kind of reinvent herself, and you will not want to miss this. This is a great opportunity for you to learn on the STEM program that she's created. I do want to also mention that this is a free opportunity because of the partnership that we have with the city of Corona. Please register today by using the link on the screen. Kim, could you go ahead and take the Innovation Month?
Sure, Bobby. April is Riverside County Innovation Month. All of our programs in April will have an innovation focus, and we'll be sharing about local innovators throughout the month as well. We invite you or an innovative new business you know to sign up for our regional fast pitch competition coming up on April 8th. The tech-focused winner will go on to compete at the county finale on April 28th. There will be prizes awarded at both levels. Go to the bit.ly link on the screen to learn more. The deadline to apply is this Friday, April 2nd. Bobby?
Excellent. And speaking of the Innovation Month, that's why we have Fender on today to kind of kick things off. They are very innovative, and there's going to be some great questions coming on up in a couple of minutes. But our membership, what we want to talk about right now is these briefings are held to educate and empower our members. And if you happen to be on the call and you are not a member as of right now, no problem whatsoever. Connect with Robert Yanez, our membership specialist. His information is on the screen right now. He'll be able to get you connected with our chamber family. There is much more than just this call. There are many benefits and opportunities for you. There are the geographical limits are the world. We are ready. I was sharing with Bob McGee earlier. Our campaign a year ago was to really expose and expand the name of Corona Chamber throughout the world. I wasn't so specific on it, and only Corona got exposed. So with that, if you would like to have more information on our membership, please connect with Robert. Kim?
Thank you, Bobby. It's my privilege now to introduce Jeff Miller and Ed Magee to today's meeting. Jeff is a longtime friend of the Chamber. He formerly served our community in many roles, including Corona City Council member for 8 years and mayor of Corona, as well as assembly member for 4 years. He is a small business owner with his own insurance practice, and he's been a key member of our legislative outreach, assisting the Corona Chamber to be at the top of its game. Now, Ed has worked with Fender Musical Instrument Corporation since 2016. He is currently the EVP of Operations at Fender and is also co-president of the Fender Play Foundation. Through his hard work and determination, he has achieved much success, and we are happy to have him on today's call. Jeff, take it away.
Now everybody can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, we're very, very excited today to have Mr. Ed Magee join us on our 3-question interview this month. Before I get started, though, I'd like to thank you all for participating, all the community leaders, especially my former colleagues, former mayor and council member Eugene Montanez and Jason Scott. So thank you for coming on the call. Let's get right into it. This is so exciting. We're gonna get going. So Mr. Ed Magee brings over 25 years of diverse work and life experience to his current role as Executive Vice President of Operations at Fender Musical Instruments Corporation, one of the world's leading musical instrument manufacturers, marketers, and distributors, transforming music history since 1946. As the EVP of Operations, he oversees internal manufacturing in Fender's Corona, California and Ensenada, Mexico factories, as well as the Fender Custom Shop. Prior to falling in love with the guitar making process and the opportunity for continuous improvement at Fender, Mr. Magee spent, get this, 15 years flying the A6E Intruder and the FA-18 Hornet for the United States Marine Corps, earning the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. After his time in the service, he spent a decade at Harley-Davidson Motor Company. Mr. Magee is currently learning to playing his American Professional Telecaster with the help of his Fender Play lessons, and is most inspired by Stevie Ray Vaughan. He also loves Prince, Jimi Hendrix, and cites the Sugar Hill Gang and the Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five as artists whose albums are among the first he ever owned. Outside of work and music, he spends time with his wife Jamel and their daughters, the eldest of which is an accomplished guitarist herself. Mr. Magee is known to come up with his own Ed-isms, which includes sayings like self-licking ice cream cone and giddy up. Sounds like titles for songs. Hopefully you can expand on that.
New album.
So with that, I'd like to get right into the first question and let Ed take over. Ed, if you have any of your colleagues on the call you want to introduce, feel free. So many of us on the call are familiar with the world famous Fender guitar and all their musical instruments, but some might not know where Fender's tentacles reach into. And I think we would be interested in hearing where you manufacture, any other ancillary products that you sell either under your name or someone else's name. And with that, Mr. Ed Magee.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Jeff. I believe Christina, our VP of Communication and Public Relations, is also on the call. So thank you, Christina, for joining us. If we could go to the next slide, please. I'd like to start off with Fender's vision and mission, since we're fundamentally a Southern California company. with connections to artists, but more importantly, real deep connections to this community, and it certainly influenced who we are and how we operate. So Leo Fender's wife, Phyllis, actually shared this story to our CEO when he first joined, Mr. Andy Mooney, and he said to Phyllis that he felt in one of his more reflective moments that artists were angels and it was his job to give them wings to fly. Andy recognized the power of that statement, and that immediately became the company's vision. Next slide. At the same time, though, Andy recognized that Fender, in order for the company to grow, we couldn't just focus on the amazing artists, the guitar heroes, the guitar sheroes. We had to widen the aperture a bit, and he changed the company mission to serve players at every stage. Right at that time, we started investing in Fender Digital. That was about 2015 timeframe. And we really started to focus on new players, learning guitars and ukuleles and basses. And it really, really helped to redefine where we are today. And it's become a huge part of our overall growth. Next slide. So Fender was actually founded in 1946 in Fullerton, California. So Leo Fender was an electronics guy. He was a tinkerer. And he had a lot of friends who were into Western and swing music at the time. So we actually moved our manufacturing to Corona in the late 1980s. It was 85, 86 timeframe. And we've actually been in Corona ever since. We've got over 800 employees in our current Corona factory, and we make some of the most amazing guitars and amplifiers on the planet. We've got a second manufacturing facility in Ensenada, Mexico. We're headquartered actually in Hollywood, California. We've got over 2,000 employees around the world and offices on 4 continents. We manufacture Fender, Squier, Jackson, Charvel, and Gretsch, Eddie Van Halen. We make our Eddie Van Halen guitars and amplifiers. And then also we recently purchased Bigsby. So we're literally a global company, and every guitar that leaves the factory has Corona, California on the headstock, and those guitars go all around the world. So our objective is to make Corona, California the Corona that everyone cares about, not any of the rest of them. Next slide. And next question, Jeff.
Okay. So it's no secret that last year was challenging for many businesses. How did COVID affect your operation? What were the obstacles you encountered, and how did you deal with them? And what are some of the good things that came out of the pandemic? For example, like manufacturing processes that changed, but are staying in the process.
Yeah, so I will, the slide is reflective of what the business experienced, and that's growth. So I mean, last year, obviously, for the whole community, for the whole country and the world, was nothing short of extraordinary. From a business standpoint, we actually benefited from the fact that families were staying at home, kids were getting schooled at home, and parents wanted their kids and sometimes themselves, to pick up new skills while they were at home looking for, opportunities to entertain themselves. So early on, probably in June timeframe, we gave away Fender Play. We've got that digital organization that I talked about a little earlier. We gave away Fender Play, so 3 months of Fender Play for free, and we had over 1 million people almost 1 million people sign up for lessons during the summer. And again, that act of goodwill turned into a really good business decision, because a lot of those players continued to play. A lot of families started recognizing that investments in their kids and music was a great way for the kids to deal with the challenges of isolation. And our business has been on a tear literally since late May, June of last year. So the factory experience mirrored much of what the community experienced. I think what I'm really proud of about Corona was the way that the city, the mayor's office, the first responders, everyone worked very closely with us as we figured out how to operate. And I call it the big and, right? We had to figure out how to manage our business and operate safely and keep our employees safe. And we made a ton of investments over the course of the year, both from the standpoint of PPE for our employees, temperature testing, testing. We were doing on-site testing very early on and often. And at one stage we were testing our employees, they had an opportunity to test up to 3 times a week. What I'm incredibly proud of was just the sense of community and the sense of just working together to solve problems that we experienced, being a community partner in the city. And as a result of that investment, as a result of we have been growing and we're expanding our facility. So what you see in the slide is building 311, where our current manufacturing footprint is just under 200,000 square feet. Building 301 is where the old tour center was. We've got our wood conditioning space there and some warehousing. But we've actually today, we finally signed the lease for building 345. And we're going to be expanding to another 117,000 square feet right here in Corona, California. We're going to be hiring new employees as we grow both our custom shop, our Made in USA production lines, and we've got some very exciting new products that we're going to be building right here in Corona, California. And again, as I mentioned, every instrument that leaves this factory has Corona, California on the headstock. And we're really proud to work here. We're really proud of the community, and we're really proud of what the community provides. And that's our incredible, absolutely incredible employees. One of the biggest lessons is when we care and put our employees' safety first, and our employees understand that we care about them first, and we've got to manage the business and keep them safe and communicate transparently. I mean, they hang in there with us, and our employees have been nothing short of exceptional in the course of the last year. So we are growing. Again, we just signed the lease. Interesting side note, we tried to buy the building. We really wanted to commit to Corona, and the owners wouldn't sell it to us. So the good news is, we locked down the lease, and we're very much committed to Corona, California, and our growth. So we're really, really excited about the future. And if you could go to the next slide, please. So, we're not your grandfather's manufacturing facility. What is very interesting about the work in the past year, we've learned some incredible lessons about, just balancing technology and craftsmanship. So in the factory, I mean, there are hundreds of pairs of hands that touch each instrument that influence music and culture around the world. And what we are investing in, and there's a ton of investment in the factory, both from a technology standpoint, but also just investing in our workforce around the craftsmanship aspect of what we do. I mean, we create instruments that are pieces of art. We give those instruments to artists, and they turn them into additional pieces of art. And the guitar is really, it's an intimate instrument. You hold it close to yourself. And one of the things that shocks artists as they come through the factory is they see all the handwork that occurs in the making of a guitar. But we've got to keep our employees safe. And if you think about, if you've been through the factory and see the sanding and some of the other processes, what we're trying to do is balance out automation where it helps our employees with their safety, right? We've got average age in the factory is about 50 years old. So we want to keep our employees safe, but we also want to make sure that we never lose sight of the craftsmanship that is really a part of the value proposition for the business and the brand. The community partnerships. So over the past year, we've worked closely with some of the local community colleges. I mean, we're asking for the best and brightest of the city and the county. Our new director of operations, interestingly, is a graduate of Centennial High School in Corona, California. So not only do we have master builders that are from the area, but the leadership of the factory is from Corona, California. And we're really proud of that. And we're making all kinds of investments to develop the workforce and create opportunities for full-on careers at Fender. And then lastly is just, from a major manufacturer standpoint, just the ease of doing business. It really helps to speed further investment in the facility, in the business, in our workforce. And I'm really, really proud of our partnership with the city of Corona, with the Chamber of Commerce, and just the support that we've received, the first responders, chief of police, the firefighters, everyone in the city has just been absolutely amazing in terms of supporting Fender and our factory as we have continued to grow. So it's been a heck of a year.
So Ed, can you expand a little bit upon the Fender Play program that you mentioned before, and for anybody on the call that might want to get involved in that? And
Sure.
what can you share with us on that?
Sure. So next slide, if you don't mind. So we launched the Fender Play Foundation at the end of 2019, and you know, a lot of it has to do with just the pride of our employees and just the desire to continue to grow the business. And next slide, if you don't mind. So we launched the foundation, and our objective is really to equip, educate, and inspire the next generation of players. So how did that transpire in the year of COVID? We got a call from the superintendent of LAUSD in March of last year. And what he said was, hey, look, the second largest school district in the country is about to go to virtual learning mode. We need some help for our summer program so that we can do some teaching and instruction outside of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And they partnered with some local LA companies to create programs for the kids who were learning, and more importantly, the teachers who were figuring out how to effectively teach online. So we said, yeah, sure, we'd love to do it. All right, so it's a pilot. What do you think about 200 kids, 200, 300 kids? And he said, nah, we'd like to do 1,000 kids. And that's what happens when you work with the second largest school district in the country. So after a big, deep swallow, everyone looked around and said, let's do this. Let's figure it out. And we launched a summer program that integrated Fender Play, so the online learning app. LAUSD provided teachers, so we worked with the teachers on developing a curriculum, an online curriculum. And we launched to 1,000 students last summer. We've got over 3,100 kids in the program right now, middle schoolers. And by the end of the year, we will have served almost 10,000 LAUSD kids. The superintendent's vision is to have a program, an active music program that provides ukuleles, electric basses, electric guitars, and acoustic guitars to up to 35,000 kids in LAUSD. And Andy Mooney, our CEO, has asked that, you know, we really focus on, you know, nail it to scale it is the mantra. So we're figuring out the best way to do the teacher, you know, work with our teachers on the professional development from LAUSD. And the partnership has been amazing. There's been a lot of lessons. And in the next year or two, we're going to start scaling the program to communities outside of Los Angeles. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, the pandemic has been an incredible challenge for all of us. But out of challenge, there, you know, innovation and just partnership and working together, we created this really, really amazing program. And we were actually on Lester Holt does an NBC Nightly News program, and I believe it was last week. So you know, we're really starting to fundraise. We want to represent the companies, or excuse me, the communities that we live and work in. So at some point, we're going to be talking to the city of Corona about expanding into, you know, into our city and community. So we're really proud of that work. And it just goes to show that you can do good business and do good at the same time.
So if I can just take executive privilege and ask a fourth question.
Sure.
And then we'll turn it over to the group if they have any questions.
Sure.
So some of us have toured the Fender Custom Shop.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that stands out to me was the high quality skill sets of the master guitar makers.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about the custom shop and what they do and what's involved for folks that may not know?
So I call the Fender Custom Shop and our custom operations, the builders are my astronauts of guitar building. They are the Six Sigma outliers to the Six Sigma outliers, you know, in terms of craftsmanship, creativity, innovation, and they do some simply amazing work. Most of the builders have spent between probably 12 and 15 years in the factory or in guitar making before they get the nod for Master Builder. And early after I arrived, we really started taking a look at how do we, again, it's all about the pipeline. And how do we start to invest in our workforce so that we can start training and developing the next generation of master builders? We've hired and promoted a few folks internally to principal master builder. And literally, these are the master builders that are leading and developing the next generation of master builders. And Ron Thorne, who was recently on Barrett Jackson Bills. So Ron Thorne's a car nut and a guitar guy. So the folks at Barrett Jackson rebuilt, they did a resto mod of a 60, I believe it was a 69 or 70 Mustang. And Ron did essentially a resto mod of a Stratocaster. The car and guitar sold for $135,000 last week at Barrett Jackson Bills. So that, I mean, the guys and gals literally can build anything in the custom shop. And we view the custom shop as the epitome of the craft. It's the epitome of the craftsmanship. And it's really about possibility in working with our artists, working with consumers, and creating the guitar or instrument of their dreams. So it's literally the history of the company. So we can build any guitar from any period in our history. And it's also a center of innovation as the guys are developing new bridges, new electronics, new body shapes, and really evolving the guitar as music and culture evolves around the world.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Very interesting. Bobby or Stephanie or Anthony, are there any questions?
Yes, we have several questions at the moment. The first being, can you share about the huge diversity of ages for your employees?
Yeah, so let's see. Can you go back? Let's see, one more slide. There you go. There we go. If you look, so the diversity of ages, we've got high schoolers and our recent high school graduates in the factory, but the gentleman who is in the top center picture there, older gentleman kind of walking towards, when you walk in the factory, there's a picture of Leo Fender. Roger Centano celebrated his 91st birthday. And Roger, a real quick story about Roger. He celebrated it, it was a few months ago. Roger has been working for Fender for over 60 years. And he's been to work every day for the past 2 years. He's not missed a day of work. He and his son work in the facility. And early on, when COVID initially hit, we got our employees together. We needed some volunteers to come in and do some work. And we asked Roger, and he said, "No, I'm coming to work." And he said, "Listen, if the Korean War didn't kill me, this little virus isn't going to kill me either." And this gentleman he's the most amazing character in the factory. When the factory leaves, Roger walks a little slower than everyone else. No one goes around Roger. So when he leaves the factory and walks out, everyone respectfully walks behind him until he leaves the factory. And then if you've ever been in a factory when it's quitting time, folks are tearing out, but there's a level of respect and admiration for both who he is, how long he has worked at Fender. And when we talk about respect in the Fender family, Roger really embodies, just everything that, heck, I want to be when I grow up. He's an amazing human being. He's very passionate, sharp mind. And so we range from 18 to 91 in the factory right now with an average age of around 50.
Wow, that is just incredible. Okay, so next question. This is in regards to the Fender Play Foundation. How can we outreach to our local school district?
Yeah, so great question. Thank you. So what we are looking at right now, and Andy, our CEO, one of his superpowers is he really knows how to focus the organization around getting stuff right before we start to scale it. His charge to Evan Jones and myself, Evan is our chief marketing officer, was we've got to get it right. We've got to start capturing the lessons of how we do this in a sustainable way. One of the early foundation lessons was we were just into giving away guitars. And what we found oftentimes was those guitars would end up in closets, the string would break. There was no real sustainability around either the program or the outcomes of the program. So we've been really working hard with LAUSD to develop a curriculum where we've got, the secret formula is engaged instructors. So we're doing a lot of professional development work with the instructors. We've got about 70 instructors that are running the program right now with LAUSD. We've got the Fender Play app because kids like to practice on their own. So they've got a tool that they can use on their own. And it's the combination of the active instructor, the live instructor, plus the Fender Play app. Plus we're doing cool things with the kids like field trips. We've got artist check-ins and different ways to inspire them to keep them playing. So we're refining that process right now with LAUSD. but we're working hard to also identify where are those other outreach opportunities. And again, one of Andy's charges is we want to make sure that we're supporting the communities that we live and work in. So for right now, I'd say just reach out to myself, and you guys will have my email. So just reach out to myself and we'll start talking about what that could look like. Obviously, the challenge is there are a lot of school systems that would love to do this tomorrow. We can do a lot, but we can't do it all on our own. So we're looking at community partners to help out with funding and the school systems, and we really want to start rolling it out in a very, very sustainable way. So I'd say let's reach out, start the conversation, and then we'll figure out the appropriate time where we can we can expand into the Corona community.
Thank you so much, Ed. There are no further questions at this moment.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank you
thank
for
you,
this
Ed.
opportunity. Yep.
Thank you very much, Ed. Does anyone else on your team want to say a few words or not?
I think we're good. I think we might have gone over time a little bit. So
Yeah.
again, I can't. Well, Christina, do you have anything or?
I think you covered everything really well, but this has been really great to listen to, and it was so nice to meet everybody. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, we really can't thank the community enough. We could not have gotten through the year without just an incredible amount of support from from the city and the firefighters, police. I mean, everyone in the community really helped us to get through the year, and we're forever grateful. Very much appreciate it, and thanks as always for the opportunity to speak to you guys.
Thank you, Ed.
Well, thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Ed. I am also a tinkering musician, so I really appreciate you sharing today. At this time, I'd like to introduce our legislative advocate, Jeff Gibson. Jeff keeps a pulse on what's happening in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., allowing us to act timely on projects and initiatives that help make a difference in shaping our community. His knowledge of complex political issues and the great relationships he's built ensure the Corona Chamber has all the tools to be effective on behalf of the business community. Please help me welcome Jeff Gibson to share a legislative update.
Thanks, Kim. I appreciate it. And just to put a fine point on it, I really appreciate Fender being on and their commitment to kids. We've worked with over 110 school districts statewide and know how the impact that work can have. So congratulations to you. That's a really great thing.
Thanks,
So,
Jeff. Jeff, we should connect afterwards because we definitely want to work with the legislator and really make music education a part of California education. So would love to
Perfect.
connect to the call. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll do. So on from that great news in the last 30 minutes of uplift, let's get into SB 31 and SB 32, in which the state of California is considering what's known as the decarbonization of buildings. And what this means is that by 2045, we as a state have set a legislative goal of eliminating, of being a net carbon zero economy. We would be the first net zero carbon economy in the world. And independent of that being a goal or not, it is now a piece of it is now part of the facts of what we're living in and what we as employers are dealing with. And we have worked very hard to not have that be the case. Obviously, we all are interested in a great economy and a great environment, but we knew that bills like this were coming. And this is SB 31, SB 32 by the same person, Senator Dave Cortese of Cupertino, California. And the key here, and we have been fighting this since the day it was proposed back in Washington, D.C., about 8 years ago, when Leah Peterson, I think she's on the call, and all of us were meeting with the American Gas Association when the Sierra Club announced that they were going to be targeting natural gas for eliminating natural gas from the American economy because it wasn't environmentally sensitive enough, even though it had led over the last 4 years in the American economy and the previous 4 years in the California economy to a reduction of 40 to 60% of the carbon emissions. It was deemed not to be carbon sensitive enough. Unfortunately, these bills, SB 31 and 32, are an extension of California building codes, which in the restoration of housing, for instance, you cannot continue to get a certificate of occupancy if you do not have all electric appliances, would be one of those items. And what this is doing, SB 32 in particular, is going to be forcing employers into only using electricity. So you cannot use natural gas furnaces. You cannot use natural gas in injection molding. You cannot use natural gas generation for heat of any kind, which in manufacturing is nearly impossible, just because of the incredible cost of electricity, and the fact that electricity takes time to warm up, takes time to cool down. And while we're all interested in the fact that electricity at the end source does not produce any carbon, there is carbon that goes into the production of electricity, even if it's in photovoltaic on the roof of your business. And so it's just a fact of life that there's going to be carbon that is produced. But if we become the only developed economy in the world that says we only are going to use one type of energy, even though that type of energy does not provide any sort of flexibility in the manufacturing process, then we are going to continue the march of making it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for great craftsmen, one of which we just heard from, but not to implicate them in this effort, but one of which we just heard from, that obviously need flexibility to meet all of the different demands. So SB 32 is called the decarbonization of buildings. Its initial focus is on electricity versus natural gas. The gas company is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, member of the Corona Chamber. They obviously have been a key part of a number of different things of what we do. It is interesting that SB 31, which is a connected bill by the same author, not only demands that when you are taking out natural gas appliances and you're putting in electric appliances, that the workers that are doing that are paid prevailing wage, which is really only a requirement on public. 98% of the time, prevailing wage is paid on public works projects. So this would treat every private employer, every project as a public works project, and you would end up paying 40 to 80% more to employees who are doing something which is largely an unnecessary cost, because natural gas is one of the just in terms of natural gas is extremely environmentally sensitive. Now, on the second side of that, if we play out the decarbonization of buildings, that puts you into the mind of how is your glass produced, how is your concrete produced, how is your steel produced, and now you're getting into this march toward what ultimately is the Green New Deal, which even the advocates of the Green New Deal price it at 7 to 10 times the American economy. So independent of its goals, the goals of the bill, you have to look at the practicality of it, which is how do we continue to expand employment in the state of California, which typically and currently is running the unemployment rate in California is 2 to 3 times the national average. And so how do we recover those jobs that have been lost? And SB 31 and SB 32 definitely are not the way, especially in this economy. And we're asking for everyone to agree to oppose those, and then we will communicate those forward. So happy to take any questions or any comments.
Jeff, we need to do a motion. Is that correct? Your
We do need a motion.
recommendation is to oppose. So Chair of our board,
Yeah.
Kim Mabon.
Okay, can I get a motion to oppose this legislation?
Is there anyone that you can unmute? If
I
not,
think Jeff was motioning.
Opposed.
Okay, is there a second?
so could we get the names though, Kim?
Yeah, Jeff Miller was the motion.
Okay.
We need a second.
I'll second Paul Bing.
Paul Bender.
Thank you, Paul Bender.
Okay, we motion to oppose Bill SB 3132. Is there any discussion?
No.
Okay, seeing there's no discussion, we will take a vote. There
All
is,
those.
sorry?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, there's a motion to oppose Bill SB 31 and 32. All in favor of our opposing bills, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Are there any abstentions?
Hi, this is Leah Peterson from the gas company. And yes, I think it'd probably be a good idea if I did not take a vote on this and I abstained. And I want to thank you for bringing this up. And unfortunately, there will be continuing bills in the future that I will also have to bring forward as well. So thank you again for discussing this.
Noted. Leah Peterson is abstaining from the vote. So the motion passes. The Corona Chamber opposes Bill SB 3132. Next bill, Jeff.
That's it. And just to put a fine point on what Leah was saying, this is something that we've been working on for the better part of a decade, going back to when the idea was first proposed of shutting down nuclear energy in California, which at the time was 16% of energy generation. We had two plants in California, Diablo Canyon up north near Santa Cruz, and San Onofre in San Clemente. They had a footprint of about half a square mile, and they were producing 16% of the energy in the state of California. So going back to that, we have been active, and even before then, active in speaking to the state legislature and Congress about, if we're going to be making these policy moves, we have to be able to account for energy generation on the opposite side. You just can't take one out of every 6 electrons out of the California generation system and then expect that they're just naturally that we're going to be okay. So this is a struggle that we've had, and while we don't look forward to continuing, we would hope it would stop. We really appreciate the gas company being such a good partner, and we will continue to work with them and everyone interested in getting us to a full employment future. So are there any questions?
Yes, there is one question at the moment. How would this affect the woodworking of Fender?
They would have to use all electric. I mean,
yeah, I can jump into that, Jeff. So we do we use a rotary thermal oxidizer. So in our paint shop specifically, natural gas is the primary energy source for the utility equipment that runs anything that generally heats the factory, but also the thermal oxidizer that actually burns all the VOCs out of our paint processes before we expend to the atmosphere. So this would be an incredible cost. I mean, we're about to spend another $2 million in the next year on upgrades to our current equipment, but natural gas is from a manufacturing standpoint, I mean, that would be devastating to manufacturing. Incredible cost, and folks would move. I mean, that's what this is going to force.
And Ed, to your point, so you're using natural gas at the urging of a local government agency, the South Coast Air Quality Management District, which is operating under federal authority from the Clean Air Act to manage the emission of volatile organic compounds, which are VOCs. So VOCs are shown to actually be carcinogenic. They come off of acetates that come off of paint, for instance. We all know what the smell of paint is. It would be that and a number of different items. So those are chemicals that we have all agreed on a bipartisan basis going back decades, those need to be dealt with. And Fender and hundreds of Corona manufacturers and tens of thousands across the country have responded to government regulations and installed these natural gas appliances specifically to help them control their environmental impact. And so going back and saying, well, now you need electric. Well, there isn't an electric appliance like that, because electricity cannot do that. And that gets back into the story that we often tell of the ongoing Prop 65 volatile chemical fight between the city of Newport Beach and the Coastal Commission, in which the state requires, because there's trace amounts of mercury in seawater, that there be signs all over Newport Beach on the beach saying that you could catch cancer by going into seawater. But the Coastal Commission won't provide a permit so that the city can put up the signs. And the state Supreme Court refuses to rule on it. So technically, the city of Newport Beach is incurring $2,000 a day in fines on one end for not putting up the signs, and $2,000 a day on the other end for not putting up the for not having the sign. And so Fender and all of these other agents, all of these other employers who just want to do what's right by the environment and the economy, end up being caught here of, we've got millions of dollars invested in handling our emissions, and now there isn't another possible way to handle our emissions if you eliminate natural gas. So,
Jeff, I think that what we're going to need to do is our next trip up to Sacramento is in our communication. I put into the chat box our representatives, Senator Roth and Assemblywoman Sabrina Cervantes' contact information. But when we go up, I think we need to do an invite for these people that have never run a business, don't understand what it takes to operate a manufacturing business. And I don't know from a manufacturing standpoint, but I do want them to come and tour and understand just what all they've gone through. The other part is, I would like for us to start an initiative that before we go to a single utility of Edison or electric, that they need to have a track record of 10 consecutive years of no shutdowns, no brownouts, any of that, so they can then at least prove that they can handle this. Because when all the stuff was shut down during COVID, we still had outages, and it just doesn't make sense. So I know we've gone a little long on today's call, but I appreciate all of you being on the call. Kim, go ahead, or do you want me to wrap up with this slide on?
Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
Okay, so for this, we just want to thank today's sponsor, UFC Gym, and they are a tremendous partner with the community. No matter your age or athletic ability, beat the routine, train differently. What an ideal way to reinvent themselves. They have actually pitched a large tent outside in the parking lot to continue allowing people to train and stay in shape. So if you want to learn more about UFC, it's ufcgym.com. Kim?
Thank you, Bobby. If you would like to sponsor a future business briefing, please contact the Chamber. Register now to join us next Wednesday for more advocacy news. Thank you to everyone for attending today. Our meeting is adjourned.